Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time to start reviewing some comics. And this week, I'm planning on reviewing Dark Knight's Death Metal #2 right now. Tomorrow should be Empire #1. Thursday, I'm reviewing Snake Eyes Dead Game #1. And then on Sunday, Nalo's going to join me, and we're going to review Giant Size X-Men Magneto. So that should be very fun. But here today, we are talking about Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo's Dark Knight's Death Metal #2, obviously the sequel to the hugely successful Dark Knight's Metal from a couple of years back. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan of the very first issue, but I certainly recommend it, and I thought it was a fun story, you know, as long as you could turn your brain off. And I'll be honest, issue #2 is kind of more the same, although I would say this issue is less fun, and this recommend is certainly even a little bit more tepid. I do not love this comic, although I still think it's pretty good. But if you really enjoyed Dark Knight's Death Metal #1, you're certainly going to like this comic as well. It's more the same, just a little bit less exciting in my opinion. Now today I'm going to start with the stuff I really liked, and we're going to move our way to the stuff that I really didn't like. And there are definitely a couple things in this comic book that I think are done quite poorly, and we'll get to that obviously later in the video. But first, let's talk about the really good stuff, and we have to start with the art by Greg Capullo. Obviously, Greg Capullo is one of the premier artists in the entire comic book industry for a reason. Normally, his visuals are kind of more gothic in nature, you know, that street level. Obviously, people really associate him with Spawn, Batman, you know, Gotham, things like this. But here, I did enjoy his work in other different settings, although it is somewhat reminiscent of Last Night on Earth, the DC Black Label book from 2019. Some of those visuals are very similar to that. But I really like this image right here. Perpetua out in the universe, destroying different versions of Earth. Very beautiful. Does a great job here, making a pretty bland, boring, may I say, lame character look pretty good. Greg Capullo is definitely knocking it out with the artwork, as you would expect. And he's doing a really good job with what Snyder's giving him here, because there is a lot of talking, and I'm going to get to that here later in the video in this comic book. And he does a great job. Everybody, even when they're standing around talking to each other, they're always in motion. One character's hand is always on another character's shoulder. Somebody's pointing. They're moving around, and he does a really good job keeping these static conversations and making them dynamic. And that's a great job on his part of making the story feel better, because there is a lot of conversation going on in here. So I think Greg Capullo in this comic is doing a great job making Scott Snyder look like $1 million. And I don't want to forget the colorist in this, FCO Placencia. Obviously, he's worked with Snyder and Capullo a lot. He and Capullo worked together quite a bit, and his colors absolutely fit like a glove. And we've certainly come to expect that. Without a doubt, it's not even close. The art is the best thing about this comic book, but I will give it this one caveat. There's so much talking and exposition in this comic book. There's no real big moments. Just like in the first issue that I kind of said, there's not a lot of a big crazy moment other than Wonder Woman using that invisible chainsaw to kill the Batman Who Laughs. And that visual was amazing, and it was certainly the standout out of that book. Here, there's no real moments like this. You get a couple of double-page spreads like this that they certainly look great. There's nothing just really gnarly, nothing really metal. The Batman or Wonder Woman or one of these other crazy characters just doing something insane that, you know, you'd want to put on a poster and really put on your wall or something like that, which I definitely expect from a Greg Capullo comic. But I don't think that's Greg's fault. I think it is the script that he's working with, and hopefully he gets those opportunities as we keep moving through Dark Knight's Death Metal. But certainly Greg Capullo's art, the standout feature. FCO Placencia, the colorist, doing fantastic work as well. As far as the story and the writing go, the thing that certainly is the best part of this comic book to me is the appearance of the JSA. Absolutely love seeing these characters come in, and there's a really great moment between Wally West and Jay Garrick when they go and see each other. Wally says, "Tell me you still remember me, Jay." Obviously, hearkening back to DC Comics Rebirth, where Wally was kind of stuck in the Speed Force, and he was unable to return to the DC Comics universe because everyone had forgotten him. And then when Jay hugs him back, he says, "I'll never forget you again, kid. Bring it in." Nice little group hug. Definitely the best character moment in this comic book. And there aren't a lot of great character moments, and I'm a little bit disappointed by that. When you have this big kind of dark story, you want those really great character moments. And that's what I think Tom Taylor and Deceased have done better than Scott Snyder here on Dark Knight's Death Metal. Both comics very dark in nature, very gritty, but Tom Taylor's is standing out with very tender, very real, very relatable character moments. And I'm not really feeling that from Dark Knight's Death Metal, at least through 2 issues, although this one here between Jay Garrick, Wally West is absolutely fantastic. Love seeing the JSA, or at least some of them in here, playing key roles. Alan Scott looks like he's going to play a big role. I imagine Dr. Fate will as well. And this was a good moment. This is probably the best thing writing-wise about this, is this interaction when Wonder Woman, Wally West, and Swamp Thing run into the old JSA as they're looking for Batman. The other thing that I think is done pretty well, there's a few issues with it, is the juxtaposition between Batman and Wonder Woman. Batman is looking to draft an army. He's going through the Rolodex of all the heroes that are left, trying to figure out what their powers are and trying to put an army together so he can take control of Earth, hide it from Perpetua, and they can live in this dark existence, safe together. Wonder Woman is not having that. She does not want a small victory. She does not want a dark, deathly Earth for them to survive on. She wants to save everybody. And of course, we learned in the last issue, she can do that if she can go and harness the crisis energy and propel it through Wally and give him all of his Dr. Manhattan powers again and maybe power him up, and then he could actually fight Perpetua. And I do like the way that Snyder demonstrates the 2 opposing viewpoints, but this is the part I don't like. After he says no and he kind of walks away from Diana, he just comes back and joins the team, and we're led to believe that Jonah Hex said something to him, gave him a pep talk, and he just changed his mind. Well, that was rather convenient. What was the pep talk? Why did he change his mind? He just flip-flopped right there. Didn't seem very in character, didn't feel like Batman, but it happened. So while I do enjoy this, and I like this portion of the story, that part felt really forced, kind of fell out of nowhere. Certainly felt like it could have been done better from my point of view. There's another element in this comic book that I think is pretty successful sometimes, less successful other times, and it's the inclusion of humor. And I will point this out. My favorite page of art, my favorite moment in this, besides the Jay Garrick, Wally West moment, is the opening page. We see Batum, which is a mashup of Batman and Adam. He's like hiding in an iguana suit. He's on the lookout for Diana and her team, and there's no way that they're going to get past him. He takes the iguana suit off. He's calling it into Castle Bat, saying, "You're never going to get by me." And then the sentient Batmobile like runs over him and kills him, which I thought was a pretty funny joke. And I found it humorous. And I thought it was a good way to open the comic. It did make me smile. I love this, Batum inside of a iguana suit, doing recon. Like, that's a funny idea to me. I wish he hadn't got killed off so quick, because I actually think the uniform's really cool too. I think the way they matched up Adam and Batman was great. Also, the last page is a joke, and I think it's kind of funny, but maybe not excessively effective, where they're kind of playing on the toy maker, and there's a weird version of Superman that apparently, I don't know if he's a missile or if he's a ship. He's one or the other. Toy maker made him, and he looks a little funny. It was pretty humorous, but there's some flat jokes in here as well. But Snyder is definitely trying to add some levity to the story. Not always completely successful, but successful enough to where it's enjoyable, and I think it is a value add, in spots. The jokes don't always feel really organic. Sometimes they do feel a little bit like they're from another comic or something. But this opening page with Batum certainly was great and well executed. So good job on Snyder for that joke. Not all of them land quite as well as this one, but I did enjoy it. Now let's get to some of the stuff I really had a problem with. And I think the thing that really holds this comic back from being like a highly recommend or really enjoyable comic is the exposition. There's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of people talking. Like I said, Capullo does a good job keeping people in motion, having them do different things so it doesn't feel very static. But in the end, it's hard not to notice all this dialogue on one page. And there's another page where Batman's kind of explaining why he's hesitant, or even he's scared, and he's certainly scared when Diana presents him the opportunity that they're going to go and save the universe, because he's had his ass handed to him so many different times and he feels like it's always his fault, and it's explained well, but it's a lot of explaining. And of course, there's a lot of explaining to do with Perpetua and the Batman Who Laughs, who I'm going to get to here in a moment. Of course, I expected the Batman Who Laughs to return to the story, and he does in this issue. And that's the thing I had the biggest problems with, and I'm going to talk about it last. But there's a lot of exposition where he's explaining his position with Perpetua, and Perpetua is kind of explaining to him what she's doing and how close she is to winning. And it's a lot of explaining, way too much exposition. And that's what keeps this from being a really fun comic book. And DC's Dark Knight's Death Metal should be over the top, bombastic fun. And these pages of exposition, in my opinion, keep it from hitting those notes. It's fun in parts, but this just really brings it down. But, you know, when you think about it, the overall scope of it, there's a lot of stuff going on. They're calling back to a lot of DC Comics lore. They're paying off on a lot of things, although there's not a lot of payoff in this comic. I think there's more questions presented than answers given. So I understand that there needs to be exposition. I just hope he can scale it back, moving on in Dark Knight's Death Metal 3, 4, 5, and 6, because if they're all full of exposition like this, it's not going to be a fun comic story to read, in my opinion. Now, getting to the thing that I disliked the most about this comic book, and if you watched my last review, my favorite thing was the Batman Who Laughed died. Wonder Woman pulled out the invisible chainsaw. She surprised him, she gutted him, and she killed the character. Obviously, I did not have any hopes that he was never going to come back. They even presented in that issue he was going to come back. He had a contingency plan. He had a body ready, and we knew it was a version of Dr. Manhattan. And here we learn that it's Bruce has become Dr. Manhattan in another universe. Somehow the Batman Who Laughs, and I don't understand how this could ever happen, has gotten a hold of that character, removed his brain, and just has his body waiting. Like, how would the Batman Who Laughs ever defeat a Dr. Manhattan, Bruce Wayne, Batman mashup? It feels like that character would be so over the top powerful that he would squash the Batman Who Laughs like a bug. And I do believe that, but that is not explained here. I imagine we will get an explanation for that in those anthology books that are coming up. There's several of them coming up in the next few months. So I imagine that's going to be explained there. Still don't know how he's going to make it make any sense, but the Batman Who Laughs does come back in this issue, and he takes like 3 physical forms. The first one, they put the Batman Who Laughs brain into the blue body. His head heals up, and he comes back, and he's basically Dr. Manhattan with a smile, and he disintegrates B-Rex, the T-Rex version of Batman, which I did not find very pleasant. I like that character. I was hoping they were going to do something fun with him. He is obviously off the board. And then Perpetua needs to talk to the Batman Who Laughs, so he changes his physical form to become basically the Batman Who Laughs that we saw before, with a little bit of a different color scheme. I do like that I can read the dialogue now. That red on black dialogue boxes were absolutely putrid to look at. You could not read them, especially on a tablet. And I'm reading all my comics on digital right now because it's hard for me to get physical comics right now. So I'm glad it's black on blue. It's much easier to read. But once he comes back and he's the Batman Who Laughs and he talks to Perpetua, he goes and destroys all the weird versions of Batman, the Batmage, the Beyonder, which was the Batman Beyond new version of that character. And he goes and destroys all these cool things that Scott Snyder has created, and got us all hyped up for. And it's like, why did you even have them in the story if you were just going to disintegrate them? We obviously know that the Batman Who Laughs mashed up with Dr. Manhattan would be very powerful. You didn't really need this demonstration to show how powerful he was. It almost feels like Snyder was like showing off, like, look at these cool things that I can create, but I don't really want to do anything with them. So I'll create them, maybe bring you in, and then I'm just going to disintegrate them and get rid of them. Like what a waste of time. What a waste of time. Why hype these characters up if they were just they were nothing? It almost feels like he knew that the Batman T-Rex and some of these other characters might outshine the characters that are supposed to be big in this story, and he needed to get rid of them because people would be more interested in them because they were very interesting to look at. So I'm not very happy about this version of the Batman Who Laughs, and I'll tell you why. I'm getting big time flashbacks to the sequels to The Matrix. I remember, when the first Matrix comes out, one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. Agent Smith plays a huge role in it. At the end, Neo overcomes him, destroys Agent Smith. Apparently, the directors, the Wachowski siblings, felt that they couldn't move on with The Matrix without Agent Smith, so they brought him back for the sequels, even though it made no sense. And he was like a corrupted version of what he was before. So he was essentially equal to or even more powerful than Neo, and he was no longer constrained by the construct of the Matrix. And it ruined the sequels because he was like this stupid wild card that could do whatever he wanted. And it was a character that didn't need to be there. And I'm getting enormous Agent Smith in the sequel feelings about this version of the Batman Who Laughs, who's been mashed up with Dr. Manhattan. He's the ultimate wild card. He's the exact opposite of Wally West, who we know needs to be charged up in order to save the galaxy. And he no longer has to play by Perpetua's rules. Great. I wish they would have just got rid of the character. And if this ends up playing out anything like Agent Smith did in the Matrix sequels, this version of Batman Who Laughs in the Dark Knight's Death Metal sequel to Metal is going to ruin the story likely. Hopefully, I do have faith in Scott Snyder that he's going to pull it all back and he's going to execute it very well, but it feels like an Agent Smith situation to me, and I'm certainly very down on that. And that is definitely the thing I dislike most about this is the Batman Who Laughs coming back so quickly. Now he's Dr. Manhattan. He's too powerful. He'll be the only character powerful enough to stop Perpetua, and then Wally West will have to figure out how to stop him because they're the yin to the yang of each other. Okay. Don't like it. If you like it, terrific. I'm glad that you enjoyed the story. I'm glad that you like where he's taking the Batman Who Laughs. It's not my cup of tea, and I see this going sideways. But I do have faith that maybe Scott Snyder will bring it back, and he has a great story to execute. And that will basically complete my spoiler review of Dark Knight's Death Metal #2. It's a fun comic, not as fun as the very first issue. A lot of exposition in here. But if you enjoyed Dark Knight's Metal, if you really enjoyed Dark Knight's Death Metal #1, I think you will absolutely enjoy this comic book. I do recommend it. It's not my favorite comic. I think it would be more fun with less exposition and more crazy over-the-top action. Hopefully, we will be getting that in the issues ahead. Greg Capullo absolutely is the MVP so far. His art is certainly outshining Scott Snyder's storytelling, in my opinion. He's doing everything he can to make this story sing, and Capullo is definitely achieving that, in my opinion. A lot of very big scope, big ideas being executed here. I do find this issue less convoluted than the first issue, although there's probably a little bit more exposition here. But I do find that brings down the level of enjoyment of the story. There's a couple of good jokes in here. Really enjoyed that Batum joke at the very opening page. Probably the highlight, other than Jay Garrick, Wally West embracing, and Jay Garrick saying, "I'll never forget you again, kid." Very nice moment. Hopefully we'll get more character moments like that, because I do think that's what's really making Deceased stand out as something really enjoyable, despite being exceptionally dark and gritty. This is obviously dark and gritty as well, but we're not getting those character moments, and I think it's not bringing, while we're getting the levity with the humor, we're not getting that levity with the character moments and being reminded why they're important and why we should invest in these characters and rooting for them to win in the end and hopefully return everything to normal. So that will do it, folks. I recommend this. Certainly not a highly recommend, and this is a tepid recommend. This is on. We're on the verge of a not recommend in here because this is not terribly exciting. It's pretty okay, and that's the best thing I can say about it. Definitely let me know your thoughts on Dark Knight's Death Metal #2 in the comments section below, and I hope you all come back tomorrow for my review of Marvel Empire #1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.